ever been there?
I have, actually, awesome. Believe it or not. So, yo, good day. Welcome to another episode of the RoadFS Podcast. We are finally in our new digs. It's taken us like 6 months to get it done.
To get in here. And that's because I'm lazy and we just didn't get it,
that
whole work thing got in the way.
Yeah, when you got to run a business and talk to customers and build a podcast booth in your spare time, it's crazy. So we are super excited. As you guys know, we are always looking for movers and shakers. We're looking to talk to you about your business. And today, earlier this week, I stumbled across a guy that really caught my attention because he was doing just a very authentic, raw review. And I'm like, oh, I like this guy. So say hello to Gary, that detail guy. Good morning. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much, sir.
Oh, dude, man, we're super excited. So why don't we start off with the big question? How did you get into detailing?
A few things. So the real story is one of the people who raised me, she had a very dirty car. We called it the Texas Roadhouse car. It was a little green neon, and she would drive it back and forth to work, obviously, and to do her normal thing. And, I was a young kid wanting to make a couple dollars, coming into my teenage years, around 13. And I just go out there and would clean it. And then I guess the second thing would be the way that my father raised me. We didn't have a whole lot. So when I was taught, when you get something nice, you keep it clean. And that kind of started with shoes. My dad always tried to make sure I had the newest shoes, the Nikes, the Jordans, and he had all these connections. I don't know where the heck the money came from, but when I got them, I kept them clean. And then as I got older, I realized I don't need all these Jordans. Let me go ahead and I can get like 6 pairs of K-Swiss. But you know what? I still kept them things clean. So
that's
nice.
That's sweet.
So
I love that the Roadhouse car.
Roadhouse car. I can just picture all the peanuts on the bottom of the floor.
Yeah, basically, it was a lot worse than
that. One of the things that that I am kind of intrigued by is like Jody said, kind of the raw, or if you will, I just call it just an honest assessment of something, right? And I watched a video where you're like, you don't need all these fancy this and fancy that. You can make this with chemicals in your own house, right?
Yeah.
So what got you on the path of doing that?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And I think the main thing for me is I've always, it didn't start out by choice, right? I think when you have the ability to get everything you want, have everything you want in life, maybe you don't spend the time thinking about those things. But, growing up, like I said, I didn't have the name brand this and name brand that. So you kind of had to make it work. You had to figure it out. And you get a little bit rigid when that happens, right? And I think that's where some of that comes from. If I look at some of the, try to be honest with my own negative bias, as I've grown up and been fortunate, that I think that's probably where a lot of that comes from. But honestly, I'm involved pretty deeply with the community outside of the things that I think everybody sees. I'm part of my own private group. I'm part of some other projects, that have millions of people involved. So I get to see the community from a perspective that a lot of people don't. And right. I would just say that it is upsetting sometimes because the way that the way that I see things, there's like a lot of negative animosity that comes with having like a super high-end thing. And me going to college initially for psychology, I've always been interested in that from a marketing perspective, just from a life perspective, sociology, and then coming into my own through the military as an analyst, I use a lot of those things to try to make those snap decisions, the decisions that were at that time, the difference between, people capture, kill, staying alive, whatever it was. So, so now in the real life, I try to apply the things that I know and that I'm good at. And one of the issues that I see all the time is we want this type of performance. We want premium performance, or we want to have this effect, but we don't have to pay for it. So I guess I was a little guy. So now I try to come up in life, and I'm just trying to continue to advocate and create those paths forward. I'm not trying to tear down brands. I'm not trying to do anything like that.
Right.
As a content producer, it's my job. Part of my job to be good at what I do is to get people to watch my videos, right?
Yeah.
You're going to see some of that, and you can call it clickbait, you can call it whatever it is, but Mr. Beast is the biggest clickbait guy out there, and I think he's doing all right. So I'm sorry.
The thing about it is anybody's going to do that. I don't care who you are. If all of a sudden somebody comes to you and goes, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars, and you're going to get a little bit back if you allow me to pop a thing up every once in a while." It just happens, right? So, but I think one of the cool things about it is, regardless of that, it's the honest assessment. And I think that's part of the thing is we see a lot of people that are literally just fanboys. They follow a brand and they just follow it because they like that brand or whatever. But it's everybody. I don't care which chemical company it is, right? Let's take this one right here. The Brown guys, they're the UPS started a chemical company. Let's pretend, right? Every one of their products is not going to be the best. They may have one or two products that are really good, but the other ones are not going to be so great. It's just the law of averages, right? When you look at it, there are some chemical companies that are fantastic, that do a good job, that you can meet the chemist, you can do all that stuff, but they still, even themselves will admit they don't have the best of fill in the blank. So I think every detailer that I've ever seen in my entire life has got multiple brands in their shop, right? You got that go-to that if I'm on gel coat and it's got a bad little nasty stain, that's the stuff I'm going to, right? So in your assessment, have you seen, and again, not to bash brands, but have you seen companies that are basically better than others at having good products in general?
Well, my assessment of the entire situation, honestly, is that there's a nuanced difference between the different products.
Yep.
I look at things as a whole, and this is a problem, probably just being an analyst, and it's something I need to work through personally. But I don't think there's that much difference between chemicals. To be honest, I don't think there's much difference between humans and people. Sometimes I look at things from a macro perspective.
Right.
I don't think anything is really special. I think we all have that one little thing that makes us a little bit different, but I tell people this all the time. It's kind of like a video game. When you can change to about 15 different heads and 12 different body types and this many different shades of skin. At the end of the day, we're all just very similar. And I think that the chemical companies are like that now. And the big difference between this is what you think is best, what I think is best. It's all going to be different. It's all going to be subjective. So I have fell on promoting, and it's almost by default, superior products for a long time because they've done some of the things that are important to me, which is make them self-accessible. There's not a brand on the planet that I think is more accessible than they are. It's just the truth. And then when you put that by price, that's kind of where I've defaulted to that. Now, as I've gotten more mature, I noticed that they've gotten really comfortable. They haven't changed their formulas a lot. They haven't innovated a lot. So some of their stuff is very caustic, very harmful in the environment. They don't have those same credentials that maybe a Sonex has, which if you didn't know, Sonex has the most environmental credentials in their country, not the brand that you think does.
Right. And just as a side note on Sonex, big shout out to Sonex, Rigo Santana, and the Peterson Auto Museum in California. Jody and I are going to be leaving shortly after this
about
podcast,
4 hours,
and we're going to be at the Peterson Auto Museum all the weekend for a big IDA event. But Sonex is going to be there, and I would agree with you. You have access to the company; they have great brands. I think that Sonex is something that people that have a little kind of, if I look at detailers and I say like most knowledge, right? I got all the knowledge in the world, and I'm just starting out. Sonex, you got to kind of have some knowledge. Just because of the way that their chemicals, they dissipate off and become more of a polish and some things like that, the abrasives. But I think one of the things that I heard from a chemist it's Dave Phillips from PNS. You can only get abrasives from so many countries. The abrasives are the same. Yes, you can only get certain chemicals everybody's using that chemical. So I agree with you. It's kind of like it's the recipe or it's what works for you. And I think that that's hard for some people. When this really kind of struck me was at MTE this year, they had a polishing contest. And I got to be honest, I was really skeptical of it. I thought, well, this is just going to be a popularity contest or whatever. But they did it really, really well. Alex Russell, they took cookie sheets. I don't know if you saw it or not, but they took cookie sheets. And they had the same guy spray them with the same paint, the same clear coat, the same number of coats of paint and clear, so that they were as close as they could possibly be to exact.
Yeah.
Then they put them on a thing, and you could use whatever chemicals and whatever polish pad, whatever you wanted to do. And so what you expected to happen, the big name guys with the big name chemicals did not win. It was a normal, just everyday detailer.
Everyday Joe, man.
And then the second place guy is a business owner out of Canada, Paolo Essentia.
Shout out to Paolo.
And he has a crazy technique that the big names in the industry would completely frown upon his technique. But
Let me ask you this.
second place.
You know why they won?
Why?
Because they're able to specialize. When you try to do everything,
Right.
you can't do that.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, we've it's been interesting as we've I don't know if you know it, but earlier this year we purchased Detail Bookie, right? So for years we've been building RoadFS, and then we purchased Detail Bookie because we felt like Detail Bookie really specialized, niched into the single operator situation. And we're like, oh, dude, they do that a little better than we do because RoadFS is designed for the 5 employees to 500 employees. And so we found some nuances in there. And so it's really forcing us to look at how we address the market too. It's like, all right, how do I present ourselves? What questions do I need to ask to make sure that we're bringing the right solution? And that's one of the things that I've really appreciated as I've watched your videos is you're really just trying to help, right? You're like, guys, this is my experience. I'm playing with these products. You can do this in its place and get the same results. And I just like your approach. It's just like there's let's rip the covers off and let's take a look at it and let's find a solution that's going to work for you. And I think too, as we've traveled to so many events, we've been in Florida and Texas and California and England and El Salvador. It's like the very conditions, the environment in which you work can affect the products that you're using.
Yep, absolutely. So where are you at in the country physically?
I'm in Georgia, actually. I'm over here in the South with the pollen and the allergies. Love to get you,
And you got like humidity and all that kind of good stuff going on.
Absolutely. So
the products react differently. And I think that's one of the things that people don't put into the mathematical equation of what products, right? You're going to have somebody that has a product, and Tommy Ramos and Rain Albertson and the Angel Wax guys we're good friends with those guys, and they will tell you the first version of Genesis in the South, where there was a lot of humidity, did not work. It did not work. And they will tell you that flat out. And they went back to the chemist, to John Hogan. They said, this is not working. And so then the next version, they actually tested it in very high heat, very high humidity environments to see how it would react. And I think for any chemical company, that is what's needed, is the ability to look at within yourself and say, this needs to change. And I think we can do that as humans, like you said. Looking at yourself and deciding you need to change something is probably the biggest, the greatest thing you can do for yourself, right? Look at yourself and say, am I the person I want to be?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I don't know. I'm a lot in the AI space. I'm actually going to school to get my master's in AI. And I think what you're hitting on is very important. Where we are at with social media, I always call it like the baby blanket thing, right? The way that social media is, they want to get you to get clicks, right? So the more you interact with something, the more that becomes what you see. So it starts to protect you. And then you get into the circle of people that are all about that. And you build this little community, which is great. But you never stop to think, okay, is what I'm projecting the right thing? Now it gets even more dangerous when you get to AI. Because AI, when you have these conversations with it, there's actually a form of mania and a psychosis that's happening, because a lot of people who interact with AI all the time, they start believing all of the stuff that AI is telling them that they are. You're great. You're a savant. You are, elite.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people are losing their marriages. People are losing their careers because they think that they're going to go out and just, XYZ. So I think it's important. What I always try to do is I'll either reset those tools that I use a lot, or I'll constantly reset them and command them to, hey, give me an assessment of everything I've done for the last month. What can I do better?
Yep.
How can I improve? How can I put out a better message? What am I actually after in life? And I think that's something I got to focus on, is just trying to figure out exactly what I'm after, because I try to do too much at once sometimes, and I tend to get overwhelmed. I got a really important video coming out tonight, and I probably should have released it last night, but that's just part of it. So we'll see what happens. It'll be an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, I think that is what we all fail to do, what you're talking about with AI, with normal humans. I mean, Jody and I have known each other for over 30 something years.
Long time.
So I have zero problem looking at him and saying, tell me what you see over here, right? But most people won't do that. Most people wouldn't just go to you and say, hey man, tell me what you see. Look online and look at me and my persona and what am I doing wrong? But I think that's probably the biggest thing you can do, is self-assessment, and have somebody else tell you, because they're going to be honest. And we have people that will do that. We got friends that'll call us and say, hey, I've been watching your podcast and I think you guys need to do XYZ.
Yeah.
Or they see us in person, and some of that advice has been great. Some of it has not, and we can look at it and say, that's not the persona we want, right? So early on, everybody looked at us and says, why do you guys have a CRM software package and you never talk about the software on your podcast? And I'm like, well, because that would have been 2 episodes and we'd have been out. Who the hell's going to watch this podcast every single week on me talking about my software? So we thought it'd be way better to talk to people in the industry. Just talk about life and detailing and goals and business and all of that. And, here we are 142 years later, still doing 4 episodes a month. So,
wow.
And more.
Yeah. And I think that's what's important. And so for you, like you said, for you going into psychology, there's a lot behind that. When I was in college, I took psychology, and then I student taught. I had the ability to student teach Psych 101 for 1 semester.
Oh, wow.
I'm not an expert, but I was enough into it that I thought it was cool enough to do that. There's so much about the human psyche and how we process things. And like you said, AI and the internet, they will build up your ego, but it's in an attempt to get you to click that box. It's an attempt to get you to do something.
Yeah.
And the reality is, life is not about clicking a box. It's about sitting back and saying, like you said, what do I really want? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And then the big one to me is enjoying the journey along the way. It's not all about the destination. It's about what you do and how you are getting there.
So I have a question for you in regards to AI, because, a lot of people are really excited about it. Some people are afraid of it. Some people are, they're not sure. So what would you recommend to detailers, how they could leverage AI in their business? Or would you?
Well, I think we could start by telling them what not to do, right? And I see it all the time, and maybe it's just because of how it is. I was having this conversation with a person /AI last night on YouTube. I've since deleted the messaging just because it just didn't serve any purchase. But I can instantly look at something that somebody reads and know it's AI. And what I don't know is if a lot of people have that ability, right? And some people do, some people don't. So you have to find a way to blend what it puts out and, how to make that your own, right? So there's prompts that you can do that, but there's general things you need to look for, right? So there's one thing is like the emoji puke, right? We all know it's the same emoji pack. So use your own, figure it out, okay? That's probably the number one thing. Don't do that. There's a thing called an in hash. So it's that elongated hash. If anybody uses that, I promise in my mind, I'm like, that's AI.
Right.
So stop doing that. But I would say use it for things that are repetitious in nature. Use it for things that can multiply your time, so you have more time to spend with your family or other, things that make money, right? I think that I use it for like instructions, right? Like how to do stuff, like how to make an ad or how to, give you some guidelines, but don't ask it to complete the whole thing and give you the actual copy of it, right? You want that part to be authentic because, you only have a couple different shots in this world. I mean, to really make an impression, and, like you said, getting them to click that button, there's a whole lot of things that have to go right to get somebody to do that.
Yes, sir.
I'm talking, I don't know if you know the exact amount, but I know that there's scientists and doctors and, there's a lot of different things, like 100 different things that have to go right to get somebody to go boop. And then once they click the button to get them to purchase something, that's a whole nother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really important lesson. I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I think detailers, especially, well, all people, we get put off by no. And I always tell my kids, especially now that they're entering the market, they're pursuing their careers. I'm like, a no doesn't mean, it may mean no today. It doesn't mean no tomorrow. Right. Because the stars may not have aligned for your customer. Maybe they come and they want a quote on a full ceramic, full detail, the whole 9 yards. Right. And they're like, yeah, I'm not so sure. And they walk away. And a lot of guys get discouraged. Well, you know what? I didn't get that sale. Well, that doesn't mean that they're not going to come back in 6 months. It's just like when years ago, we have a customer here in Boise, McDowell's. They've been using our software for years. One of our first users. And one day I was on a way out of town in my Suburban, loaded with 8 kids. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to swing by and I'm going to have them look at this tear in my leather seat and see what it'll cost to do that. I literally had all the kids in, swung by. I go, hey, I'm just heading out of town. Can you give me a quote on this? And so they came out, they scanned the VIN, took pictures, sent me a quote, and I got back. And 2 weeks later, I'd kind of forgotten about it. It's in the back of my head. They called me up and said, hey, Jody, on July 3rd, you were in our office and we took gave you a quote on the repair on your leather seat. Do you want to schedule that? Guess what? I did. So the answer was no when I was leaving the state. But 2 weeks later, when they called me up and followed up, the answer was yes.
Well, and I think you touched on something too. At that point in time, that the rejection was obvious. They didn't maybe have to ask the question why, right? Because you probably told them, hey guys, I'm getting ready to leave. I just want you to check on this. I'll be back, right? Yeah. But here's the thing. When you told me that scenario the first time with the ceramic coating guy, when somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want to give you a pot of money or I want you to do a ceramic coating, the first thing I'm going to ask them or any detail is why.
Right.
Well, because a bunch of guys on the internet said, if I got this new car, I should get a ceramic coating. And then I'm going to say, well, okay, what type of person are you? Are you going to go to the car wash ever? Okay, then I don't want to see you invest this $2,000 with me or the guy up the street. Right. Because I it's one thing to get a customer or a client, but, I try to be friends. I want people to come back for a long time. And that's the big play really with the ceramic coating is that's the psychology behind it is these people make this huge purchase. So the real game is to get them on a maintenance package, right? So that they maintain that. That's really the big difference. I'm not sitting here trying to blow anybody's, game up, but that's the other part of it. So if you can build that trust and you're honest with them, maybe their perception or maybe they think what they're going to get out of this coating isn't truly what it's going to be. And then they can kind of switch that back and, you do that. But that's hard to do because there's a whole lot of guys that see that paint protection money and they see that ceramic coating money and then they forget who they were. They forget who they are and they don't want to do interior cleanings. I talk to those guys all the time. Those are the guys a lot of times that call me a bum because I just like to do interiors. But I can do that because detailing is not my main source of income. It's not even a fraction of that, So I'm not inundated with vehicles all the time. And in fact, probably in the last 6 or 7 months, I detail basically when I want to or when people hit me up. I don't advertise. I can get busy if I want to. And I like having that as a fallback. But, I've got some other stuff going on, fortunately, and I don't have to detail a whole lot. So
that's nice. Well, I think that the key to that is that people here, we always, at the end of this, we're going to ask you a question and we're going to say, what advice would you give people? So I'm going to do this ahead of time. The advice I would give people is look at your customer base. Are you getting the repeat customers? Are the majority of your customers repeat? If they're not, you need to look at why. Why are they not coming back to you? It's that maintenance package. It's that, hey, I got another new car. I want to bring it into you to have you detail it. Can you assess the paint? You want your clients to not just be your friends. You want them to use you as their trusted source for information about cars. I don't care if it's tires. Hey, man, Gary, what should I do for tires on this car? You've been detailing it for a while. That's you want that. You want to be that trusted advisor, because if they're not coming back to you, if they're not asking you other questions beyond just, will you wash my car? Will you do a ceramic coating? You're doing something wrong, because they're going to somebody else for that maintenance.
I think it's very interesting you bring that up. Part of my story and why I kind of came back, because I set out of making content for a while. It was taking too much time. I didn't really know what I wanted out of life. And my wife and I, we bought a new house, and I was transitioning from the military. It was just a lot, right? And then all of a sudden, it was right when the hurricane hit. So I thought it was a scam, because I get emails all the time from like random people. Speaking of which, I had gotten, before you guys hit me up, I got an email about a podcast, and I got to talking to this guy, and I thought it was going to be this big deal. And it was a scam. So, I made a video about it, and I look like an idiot, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be such a huge opportunity. No, I'm going to get money and everything. Like, no, I mean, but I was honest with myself, and that's how I was able to recognize, like, yeah, you're trying to steal my Facebook account. But anyways,
right.
It's very sophisticated, and I would go as far as saying that it was very targeted, and I find that very interesting. I'll just leave that alone. But yeah, life is just crazy, man. And I forget what you were saying. I done got myself sidetracked. You were saying
people need to assess why their customers aren't coming back to them, why they're not getting repeat business.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So around the hurricane hit, I got a call from a big company, and they wanted me to do, I'll just say it. It was Amazon, and they wanted me to do 2 videos to talk about their Amazon auto storefront. Yep. So I did. And I worked with them through an intermediary. So that's just how they do business. And it was a pretty decent chunk of money. And I couldn't from the life of me understand how I got that opportunity. Like, how did they find me? And I know that like on TikTok, I've been there for a long time, and I've gotten a lot of opportunities, and I'm like, I don't understand like what this is. And it goes back to me being a nerd, and I make what's called searchable content. I'm usually not the viral guy. I don't have huge videos. Even my biggest videos, 2-3 million. I'm in some different groups with guys that get 50 million views a month.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Like these young guys, they don't see what's in front of them. 50 million views. I'm like, dude, in my life on TikTok, I got maybe 30 million. He was up. One of these guys was upset. Well, I only got $4,500 for the 50 million views I got last month on Instagram.
My dude, $4,500.
Dude.
Write me the check.
Yeah, I'm like, dog, I'll take that. So anyways, I got this sizable thing, and I couldn't figure it out. So me being an analyst, I'm looking. I go and look at my my link that's on my TikTok. That at that time, that's the only place I had my link tree. And I go and look in there, and I get to looking at the numbers, and my conversion rate was like 20%. So you guys know anything about conversions? The national average is what, 1.8?
Yeah.
If you do 1.8 on your ad spend, whoo-hoo, you're on fire.
Yeah.
So that means that people, I was a part of the people's decision-making process when they go to buy new products and tools.
Yep.
So I started thinking about that, and then it got me onto well, how can I make this better? Because right now I'm just doing all this other stuff. So I sat down with my wife, I talked to her, and I said, I think I want to take this money and I want to invest it back in the community, because fortunately we're at a decent place right now where I think we can afford to do that. And that's exactly what I do, that investment. And that's how I started that detailshop.com, thanks to that investment. So
that's nice,
that's awesome,
man. That's cool.
And I think that's the key is people kind of assessing. We talk to people all the time. We've had people that are comfortable enough talking to us and saying, hey, how do I start a podcast? What do I do? You guys have been doing it for a long time. And I'm like, well, first off, you need to understand that if you do it, you have to have a purpose behind it. And if the purpose behind it is just, I want to have a podcast, that's not going to do anything. If your purpose is to give back and to highlight, whatever products or chemicals or machines or the environment or your community, whatever, what is the purpose of doing that? Because we see so many people come in and go out and they're like, well, I never got all the views. I never got anything. I seen yesterday from Gary Vaynerchuk. And it says, you people whining about only getting 10 likes or subscribers. And it's a picture and it says, this is what 10 likes look like. And it's him sitting behind a desk with 5 people on each side of him. He's like, how many of you would love to have 10 clients sitting in front of you, or 10 potential clients right now? He goes, don't worry about the likes. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. It's what is the purpose of it?
Yeah, it's so humbling. I remember my first like viral moment, maybe not my first, but I'm so sorry. There was a guy that was homeless, and he was in a wheelchair, which people with special needs and stuff like that, it's how I grew up. My godmom, one of the people who raised me, she is a CEO of a place called Happiness Bag, and it's a nonprofit that helps people with mental and physical disabilities. So I saw this guy, and he was with a young person and a dog, and he was outside a Subway, and I did what I was supposed to do, right? Got him food, got the little baby girl food, and I posted about it, and it went crazy, like 50,000 people, and I was, back then, we're talking, I don't know, probably 2010, 2011 or something like that. It just went wild, and I started looking at that like, wow, 40,000 people. There's only 30,000 people in my city. Right. And now I take a step back. I'm like, wow, 250,000 people look at me sometimes on the internet. That's crazy. Yeah. I see my friends at work and they'll be like, man, I watched a new video. I'm like, oh, that's weird, dude. Get out of here. Yeah. I just try to put the stuff out. I put out what's on my mind. I think if anything, this last month has taught me that I need to do more to give back. I need to do more to highlight the little voices. And that's why I've kind of made a commitment to myself to move outside of Superior, start looking at some other options, because and it comes from a selfish place a little bit, but I can't really do anything for them. Like, they're already established. There's nothing I can do. There's not a video I can put out that can really highlight their mission anymore, right? So I would love to align myself with a brand or a couple other more brands that's either coming up or trying to find it, trying to make it, right? Yeah. But that's a hard thing to do, because a lot of those brands, especially on the chemical side, it's not that they're not honest, and I think I figured out why, but there's a lot of stuff you got to get in between that, right? There's a lot of, because the reality is I'll talk to a lot of these people and they'll tell me everything about them and their company, and they think I don't understand that, like you said, there's only so many raw material suppliers out there. Yep. You mean to tell me that you're the 6th company in Los Angeles that is bringing in everything from scratch? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking to somebody once and they were really proud of this product, and I looked at it and the bottle was exactly the same as this. I'm like, you didn't even change the bottle, you just put a different label on it, and it's the same stuff. And I'm like, it's a great product. It's a great product, and the originator of it is doing a good job of white labeling for people, and they're going to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it works, So,
have you guys? Let me ask you this, and because I asked my people in my group the other day. Have you guys noticed an uptick in people being concerned about white labeling and private labeling?
Yes.
Is that a normal thing? You guys have been doing this a lot longer than me.
Yeah,
there's something going on.
People are all freaked out about it, and I'm like, it's been happening.
It's been happening
years.
A long time.
For years, people have been white labeling stuff, and that there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of somebody else's technology and work. It's the same thing as franchising a business. Right? People franchise. Look at McDonald's, man. Probably one of the biggest franchises ever. You got coffee shops all over the place. That's just white labeling of somebody else's stuff with their name on it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think if people are trying to pass it off as they're the ones that created it, I did the whole thing, and you're like, no, man, just say this is my label. This is my stuff,
Yeah, and then for me, then I look at that, and then I see there's like a lot of psychological cues. So one word you'll hear associated with that is different. Mm-hmm. Well, my product's different. I want to be different. I wanted to create something new, and okay, well, I don't believe you because there's a couple of things that happen, and I'll start counting how many times they say that. And there's a lot of analysis that you can do just by that. If you want to see if somebody's full of crap, count how many times they say different in their pitch.
Yep.
And then go look and see what that means, right? And maybe that's just like me, when I say, right, that shows a lack of confidence. That shows, hey, come on, this is an awkward moment. I hope that you agree with me because I'm talking about something uncomfortable, right?
Yeah, and I think that's and I do that when I'm showing somebody or I'm talking about the software, and subconsciously I'm like, shit, I went too far. I've gotten too nerdy on them, and I'll stop and I'll say, does that make sense? And I'll catch myself saying that, and I'm like, if I've said that 3.5 times, I need to back off of that and just start doing it a little, and just asking them, what is it you want to see? What is it you want to know? Because I can talk about the bells and whistles all day long. And I'll catch myself. I'll be like, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I'm like, I got to be done. I got to be done. So I think that that's part of it, is trying to adamantly defend that you're so different. And there's nothing wrong. I know a couple guys that have a white label product, and what they've done is they've taken this product. Let's say it's a whatever, APC. Mm-hmm. And they then add something to it. They add another chemical to it. They change it a little bit because they're like, well, I didn't like the original one because of this, so I added a little bit of that. But they're not trying to push it off as it's so different. They're just like, I just like this a little better in my environment. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that at all. The only time I have a problem is when somebody's trying to pass it off that they created it,
And that's the thing, right? So when you start doing that and you start making those big changes, depending on who does the change, like let's say it's the company that does it, you call them, say, hey, I need it to have this. When you're now moving past white label, and that's private label, right?
Correct.
White label is whoever made this, and then I want to put my logo on it. That's white label. Now mass produce it, go out there and get it, right? Now, if I say, I don't really like this material, I like the form that you have, but can you change that a little bit?
Yep.
Now, and then let's do green, instead of green, let's do yellow. Let's flip this, do this. I want a different texture. I want it to last a certain line. Now you're getting into private label, right?
Yep.
But please don't try to convince me that all of a sudden you've turned your basement or your shop into a producer of.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been to some of those places. Everybody can't do that. Like in Ohio, in Canton, Ohio, PDP, that has been there for 150 years. You go downstairs in their basement, they got these mixing vats and these huge massive doors that chemical trucks back up and deliver the raw chemicals. Yeah. They're making the product, yes, right? Sir. And they don't. What's funny is when you listen to them talk, that's not what they push. They say this is a great product. It does this, this, and this, but they're not standing back there going, we've produced all of these things and look at how great. They just don't. They're humble about it because it's just part of their nature. It's what they do, right? And I think that is something that's needed in not just the detailing industry, but every industry. But because we're in the detailing industry, there's so many people that for a while, a couple of years ago, the big trend was who's the best, right? I'm the best. I can polish black paint like nobody else. And I'm like, that's great, but there is no best. Right? Yeah. There's no best. What is the desire to say that you're the best polisher? I don't get it.
I use the word the best a lot of times because that's what people search, right?
Yeah.
Now, in general, do I think I'm the best at this or this is the best at that? I don't know. It just depends on who you are. Like I said, we kind of touched on that earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing, right? Truly the one that makes the sale is usually who's the best at the marketing, right? I've been very fortunate the last 30 days. In the last 30 days, maybe, and this is small potatoes, I had it to sell every single day. And I looked at my wife and I said, wow, that's great. Now, not every single day, but I had 30 sales in the last month for that detailshop.com. And I'm like, what a blessing, because I've never spent money on an ad. Yeah. To this point. I will eventually. I'm not very proud of my website, and there's some things on the back end, so that's why I don't really promote it a lot, but it's coming. I'm sorry for everybody. And I'm just trying to make sure that I get the right feedback. I don't want to launch something out there and sell 1 billion of them and then 1 billion come back, right?
Exactly.
So, I think it's nice, and I'm, like I said, in a position to where I can kind of pace myself. Now, when it gets into the lies and the marketing, I'll tell you what, on the chemical side, I've tried to figure out why. And this is one of the theories I'm on, and I think maybe you guys are a little bit older than me, and you've been doing this a lot longer and probably way more.
Just said I'm old. Which is all good, man. I'm proud of it.
No. Hey, you guys are older than me, right? And I say that as a sign of respect, right?
Yeah, well, we don't care. You're fine.
We're
so what were you saying about it?
Sorry.
So my theory is, and it comes from the misinformation and uneducation from from the clients, right? The people that are the people that are buyers. But my theory is so like for right now, I won't do that, but I'll just say if I want to go, you look at the old distribution model, right? Yeah. Joe has a shop and he's doing crazy with the oil changes and that type of stuff. And then, company A comes by and says, hey, you got this shelf space. You care if I put my detailing chemicals on there? And how about this? You'll be the only one that can sell this in the city, in the state, in this region, right? Yep. And that worked for like 50 years before the internet, before 1997. That was a great model because the manufacturers got to do what they want to do, which was offload chemicals, offload product in mass quantities. They had all these little distributors come out and they would go crazy and everybody made money. Everybody ate, right? Yep. But in 1997, the internet turns on, right? So now everything is out there and, really years past now, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, everything's got established. You're not just competing no matter what you're competing with everybody on a world stage, on a global stage. So that's part of the shift. But now let's say I have a following or something like that. I get calls all the time and I'm sure a bunch of people do. I say, hey, so that model is still there. So if I call company A and say, hey, I want, your product, I want that on my storefront. They say, hey, can't do that because Joe down the street, he's got that agreement with us. I'm sorry. But you know what we can do? If you put your logo on this and then don't tell anybody that you know who we are.
That's right.
We can take care of you. And then they'll probably load them up with a bunch of stuff. Hey, it'll be good. Everybody likes you. Just say you created it. We'll make a special formula just for you. And they eat that up because a lot of us detailers, wherever you want to be honest about it or not, we all got egos. We're all perfectionists and we're probably borderline narcissists, honestly. The psychology says that. If you do market research on a detailer, it's a trait that we're going to have. Yeah. And, I talked to a lot of companies, a lot of businesses. We are all going to be very similar in that regard. So all they have to do as their job as marketers to get you to buy into that system is to sell you.
Feed the ego.
Feed that ego. And now here you are on the internet talking about, I got the best this, da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then
that's my theory when it comes to the chemicals.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about it is whether it's chemicals or pads or polishers or rags, I don't care what it is, the industry is going to tell you, right? Because the second, like, let's say that I decide I'm going to produce some microfiber towels. There's only two places you can buy them. I'm going to get them from Korea or I'm going to get them from over here, China, and they're going to show up. And let's say that they're exactly the same towel as Costco's, right? But I'm going to sit there and build my ego up and say that I created these. They're red. They're not yellow, right? And I have them tear the label off before they hit the floor. Well, all the stuff that's going to happen is people are going to notice that and they're going to go, these things are crap. They're worse than a Costco towel. They're just red, right? And then I'm going to get into an internet fight with people back and forth. And that's what we see happen. Unless people would just swallow their ego and say, you know what? You're right. I white label these towels. I change the color of them. I can make them whatever color you want. If your shop colors are orange, I can get you orange. If yours are blue, I'll get you blue. But they're just the same towels as everybody else's, and I just sell them at a lower margin.
Yeah,
that would be somebody that would probably get tons of people to buy the towels from them instead of going to Costco because the big deal is you don't have to tear the label off. I've already done it for you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I know a guy who does that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question because we're kind of running against the clock. We have a hard stop at 11, I love this conversation. I mean, it's just been fantastic. Yeah. As you do your videos, as you do your reviews, as you talk to other detailers, what are one or two things that you would recommend they do in their business to level up?
That's so funny that you asked me that because there was a video I meant to put out today. Let me, it's so funny. I actually had the script. And when you said that was the comment, I was like, no way. Cause I got it right here. I'm going to give you 4 things. You asked me for one and I promise it'll go straight. So the number one thing is launch ugly, right? There's one thing that all of us do being perfectionists is that we don't want to put the bad thing out there. Just put it out. Yep. The quicker you put it out and the more times you put it out, the more likely you are, honestly, you get a customer. A lot of people talk about the algorithm and wanting to be perfect. Nobody cares, right? If I put out 10 videos, I got a greater chance of getting one customer than I do that one perfect video. That's just the truth, right? So launch ugly, get the content out, get the idea out there, create an MVP, right? See if what your idea is even novel, if anybody will even buy it. That's one of the things why I'm trying to move that detail shop slow. And, you know, I've ramped things up. But at the end of the day, if I put $30,000 into this one product and nobody wants it, before I sell 10 of them, I'm in a world of trouble. I don't have money like that.
Yep.
The next thing is going to be that your story is your product, right? So a lot of people don't want to show that back story. They don't want to show where they started. They don't want to show where they came from. Okay. So my advice is tell everybody about it. Tell people where you came from. And it doesn't have to be rag to riches. I'm fortunate that that's part of my story is that I didn't come from anything. But if you came from affluence, just tell people about it. Tell people what that side of the life is about it. Because you never hear that story. Hey, my mom and dad both were millionaires. Let me talk to you about it.
Yep.
Who cares? It's your story. That's what makes you you. That's what makes you different. That's what separates you from everybody is your life experience. The next one, use free tools, right? So I started out, one of the things that made me successful is being ready for the moment, right? So when I first decided I want to be a detailer, I knew I wanted a logo. So I learned how to use Canva. I learned how to use CapCut coming up and things like that. And the benefit of that was when I went viral, one of the things I felt like that helped me is I went live every single day for like 3 months. And every time that you saw my live, I had an overlay on it that said, hey, I'm Gary Passmore, professional detailer. I call myself that detail guy. Ask me anything. Nobody had that. So I would get all this traction online. Everybody would be talking to me, and it just helped me grow. Yep. But it was because I had put that work in before on how to make a logo that helped me out. So I learned how to use those free tools. I learned how to, and then they'll just help you solve, the problems of tomorrow, right? And this is kind of the same, but just continue to document. And you don't have to flex all the time. You don't have to come off like you're making it, like everything's perfect. Like you guys' studio looks perfect right there, right? Turn the thing around and show us what the
absolutely. Absolutely. This is a temporary wall I built from home. Wall. We big shout out to the detail doctor. He gave us the wallpaper. And I mean, literally,
this is a $500 neon light from China.
And this cool ass red table was a conference table that we cut down with a skill saw and spray painted red. So there you go. When we started our podcast, and I love that first one, Go Ugly, right? When we first started our podcast, this is no joke. We had a cell phone packing taped to a little tripod. That we didn't have the adapter to it, and we were sitting in our chairs.
It was to a cardboard.
That's right. It was to a cardboard.
And
halfway through the first podcast, it started slipping down. So Jody and I just grabbed our chairs and we just started lowering our chairs as the camera went down to stay with it, and we just laughed about it the whole time. But that's the thing is we started this
Launch
podcast.
Ugly, baby.
Launch Ugly, man. I love that. I love those 4 things. And in fact, when we cut this up and put it in shorts,
that's going to be the title.
Launch Ugly. So. We really appreciate you coming on here, man. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I'd love to meet you in person sometime because I love the combination of the psychology and business. I think that's really important. And I just love what you do out there because you're just honest. You're not being mean to anybody. You're just honest, Yeah.
I think that's what's going to get you the furthest in life. That's what that's going to get, just being you. And my favorite thing that I was going to end with that video, like I said, I had the whole script. And it looks like I don't have to do that now.
You should still do it.
Yeah, hold on just a second. It was oh Lord, I done lost it now. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. Man. You're good.
Yep. Oh, I done lost it.
That's all good.
Here we go. Yeah, basically, now you don't have to be a guru. Look at me. I'm just a dude sitting in my garage or sitting in my basement right now.
Yeah,
that's
I love that.
Just don't be the guru. Be the guy that's just sitting down in the garage, getting the work done.
I love that.
And that the thing about us is like Jody was saying before this, we started in 2019 and we had no idea what we were doing. But the reason that we still have people following us and we have 5 channels and awards and the stuff that we have is because 1, we're humble, and 2, we're not experts in anything. We just ask people questions. We're just trying to ask people questions.
We just have fun.
And so that's just go out and
Yeah.
ask questions, learn, and then give back to people, man. I love that. I love
Yeah.
it because if somebody calls us up and if I don't have the answer and if I know somebody that does, I'm going to give them that, you know? So,
well, guys, I need you to go connect with Gary Passmore, that detail guy. You can find him all over Facebook, Instagram. He's got really
TikTok.
good content. TikTok. Please go connect with them. Please remember to go out, like, share, and subscribe. And we want to thank Gary. Gary, thank you so much for responding to my message because, like you said, sometimes you're not sure. Is this a legit reach out or is it there's some ulterior motive? And we appreciate your time, your insight, your experience. Man, it's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. And I will just say this. I would love to connect with you guys. I don't think it'd be any surprise. You guys probably figured out I'm from the tech world. I'd love to sit down and talk to you guys about your actual software. So if you have a time where I can schedule a meeting with that, because I am working on a project behind the scenes that's kind of in that space, and also the podcasting and things like that. So
cool.
Absolutely.
What I'll do is I'll reach out to you next week. We're literally hopping on a plane in 2 hours.
Completely understand.
So, but thank you so much. And guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Rod and I will be going live from Peterson Auto Museum Friday and Saturday. So, we're going to have some sweet rides in the background. We're going to be putting our hands on some cars, polishing and restoring and preserving. So we will check you guys same time, just probably tomorrow.